It's great to see you. We've got a great Bible story lined up for you today. We're looking at the book of Matthew, and we're talking about the guy who wrote it. That's right, Matthew himself. Here he is. Everyone say, "Hi, Matthew." Now, I don't think Matthew actually looked like a Sour Patch Kid, but he was a bit sour before he met Jesus. Everyone, show me your best sour face. Matthew was a tax collector for the Roman government, and Jewish people at that time did not like tax collectors. First of all, the tax collectors worked for the enemy. If that wasn't bad enough, the tax collectors paid themselves by taking more money than the people owed. And sometimes they would take more money than they were supposed to and kept the extra for themselves. We're not sure if Matthew did that, but tax collectors often did. Regardless, Matthew was probably very used to seeing people make faces at him like you just made, and it probably soured him right back. Why, here are some townspeople now. We call them Mike and Ike.
Matthew, you are a traitor to your own people. You're getting rich from our money. Go home.
Oh, stop complaining. I know you don't like me, but you've got to pay your taxes anyway. And that means paying me, yeah.
See what I mean? Matthew was probably a pretty sour kind of guy. But don't worry, this was just the beginning of his story. One day, when Matthew was sitting at the tax collector's booth, Jesus came to town. People had heard about Jesus. They heard about his amazing teachings and the miracles he had performed.
Jesus is coming to our town? Woo! I hope he talks to me.
There must have been so much excitement and curiosity as to what Jesus would do. This Twix is going to represent Jesus. Let's open the Bible and see what happened next.
As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew. He was sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," Jesus told him. Matthew got up and followed him.
Okay, let's get this straight. Jesus is the Son of God, so he definitely would have known all about Matthew's job as a tax collector. He knew he had gotten rich off of other people's money. Jesus knew the people hated Matthew, but Jesus didn't ignore Matthew. He didn't walk the other way. He didn't do this. Instead, Jesus went right up to Matthew and said, "Follow me."
He's talking to me, right? Jesus is talking to me? I gotta go.
Oh man, that's not fair.
Matthew got up and followed Jesus. He must have been just as shocked as the other people that Jesus would call out to him like that. I mean, Jesus knew everything that Matthew had ever thought or done, even the things he had done wrong. But apparently, Jesus could see something about Matthew that Matthew couldn't even see about himself. Jesus believed that even a sour guy like Matthew was valuable and important. Matthew was so excited that he invited Jesus and his friends to have dinner at his house, and they weren't the only guests. Many tax collectors and sinners came. They ate with Jesus and his disciples. You know what that means. More sour dinner guests coming right up.
Wow, Matthew, love your house. This is so fun. Thank you.
Of course, not everyone in town was excited about this little dinner party. The religious leaders, called Pharisees, didn't think Jesus should hang out with such sour company. They asked Jesus' disciples,
Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?
The disciples didn't even have to answer their question because Jesus overheard and he answered himself and said,
Those who are healthy don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have not come to get those who think they are right with God to follow me. I have come to get sinners to follow me.
You see, Jesus knew that the religious leaders thought that they had it all together. They didn't think they needed Jesus, and they didn't want to change. Instead, Jesus focused on people like Matthew, who were very aware that they needed help. The religious leaders didn't know what to say. After that, Matthew became one of Jesus' 12 disciples. He followed Jesus everywhere, and he saw more amazing things that Jesus did than nearly anyone else. Near the end of his life, Matthew wrote down all the stories he had witnessed and gathered them all together so that others could also know Jesus. That's why it's called the Book of Matthew, because he wrote it. And you know what? Being around Jesus changed Matthew. He was no longer a tax collector getting rich from other people's money. He wasn't sour anymore. He was filled with joy.
Woohoo!
When Jesus saw Matthew that day in the tax collector's booth, he didn't focus on all the sour things Matthew had done. He saw Matthew as valuable, as someone who needed his help and love. Jesus sees you that way, too. He sees how valuable you are. He knows that you're made in the image of God. He loves you, and he wants you to follow him, just like he invited Matthew that day. When you know how much Jesus loves you, you can see that you're valuable too. Bottom line, knowing Jesus changes how you see yourself. Whenever I think about how Jesus forgives and changes me, it reminds me that I can trust God no matter what. Even if I'm having a hard time or feel like I'm not good enough, I can trust God and remember that he will always forgive me. I can choose to follow him and live his way every single day. I could talk about that all day, but I won't, because it's time for small group and you get to talk about it with each other. Have fun!